Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of November 7th, 2019. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Hartke,
Here.
Vice Mayor Rowe,
Here.
Councilmember Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Climens,
Here.
Councilmember Wong,
Here.
Councilmember Lopez,
Here.
Councilmember Orlando.
Here.
All right. Thank you, City Clerk. Pastor Tyrone Stowe from Gospel for Life Church. Is that still the name of your church, Pastor?
Victory Life.
Victory Life. I thought so. It's going to lead us in the invocation, and Councilmember Lopez will lead us in the pledge. Pastor.
Heavenly Father, we just come to you tonight that all will be heard. Father, we just ask you to give our mayor, give our board wisdom and knowledge and understanding about what this city is going to be. Father, we just thank you for this responsibility that to hear what people are asking, what they're needing, what they're wanting. And Father, I ask you to give them the hearts to hear their petitions. Father, help Chandler to be a city like no other, a city set on a hill that shall not be hid. Let every gift and talent be released, every idea that is of you, let it be blessed tonight. And those things that are not right, well, just keep coming back. It may not fit right now, but it has a perfect time. And Father, we just want to be in your time. We want to be in your purpose. We want to be part of your plan. And so we bless our neighbors, we bless our friends, we bless Chandler tonight, and we just thank you for a good meeting, and we speak peace to every situation. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in reciting our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Stowe. Good to see you. Thank you, Councilmember Lopez. Council owner, we've got a consent agenda tonight as well as a couple action items. We had opportunity to discuss the consent items on Monday, and there's some good things on here and a couple things both on consent and action that have drawn some speaker cards, of which we will get to in a minute. I'd also just like to highlight there's several grants given specifically, for example, to our fire department on here for different uses, which we always commend finding sources for special purposes in our community. A couple continuances. But on our consent, before we actually proceed to a call, I would like to give opportunity, or before we make a motion, I'd like to give opportunity to a couple speakers who have come for this. So we have two for item number 3. First, Paul Nuno, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would.
All right.
Never been in this before. Do I just
Yeah.
here?
Paul, coming up to the dais there is you'll see a series of lights. You have up to 3 minutes. The light is green. When it turns yellow, you can, if you're done in one, that's fine too. But when it turns yellow, kind of wrap up. When it turns red, it's time
That's
to
fine. For the most part, I
move.
am.
If you could give your name and address for us too, please.
My name is Paul Nuno. I am a resident of Enclave at Hamilton Ranch. Address is 140 East Honeysuckle Place. I am talking to you concerning the warehouse that's going to be built adjacent to my residence. Pretty much, I didn't have the opportunity. I recently had a kid. I didn't have an opportunity to go to a planning zoning committee, but the thought of having a 45-foot building adjacent to my new home is ridiculous. I'm actually kind of shocked that it got through planning and zoning this way. There is nothing of that plane along Queen Creek Road heading west as far as commercial goes. So, and I don't even know how they plan on getting past the FAA, as that is in the flight area of the flight path. I have no issues with commercial property being in that location. I think it's great. I think it's good for business. My main issue is the traffic it's going to bring down Arizona Avenue. There's already growing amount of traffic down Arizona Avenue as it is. We cannot afford to just back that road up anymore. Gilbert's already backed up as it is. We cannot have additional traffic caused by this warehouse facility. Not to mention the height of it is a major concern for me as well. So that's really all I have. I strongly encourage the council, as well as yourself, Mr. Mayor, to oppose this, this item on the agenda.
Thank you, sir, and congratulations with the new addition to your family.
Hey, thank you.
Next speaker card on the same item, item number 3, is Ken, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name right, Ken McAustin? Same thing, Ken, if you'd please state your name and address for us, and then you have up to 3 minutes, sir.
Ken McAllister, 2040 South Alma School Road. Most of you know me by name, by face. Paul, I'm sorry that this warehouse distribution center is going to be built adjacent to your neighborhood. Most of this council is aware that last year we had these chambers full of people opposing another distribution center that is 10 times bigger than this, that is right down the street from you. I oppose this project, and some of the reasons why I oppose the project is, one, is that we were told to get involved earlier in this process, which we did this year. We went to planning and zoning would not listen to us. We went to the community meetings. They would not listen to us. They took some items that were concern to me specifically, because I work directly with Council Member Matt Orlando, which was helping me to kind of work through some of the items. One of the things that really concerns me is that one of the things that was brought up in the planning and zoning meeting was the adjacent parcel that is zoned I-1 and it's on page 2, where it says surrounding land uses, and it talks about the parcel just west of this facility is zoned I-1. And I will talk about this later because it's not on the agenda, on how this piece of property over there became I-1 and why it is still I-1. But if this council continues to allow these warehouses to go in, it's not doing any good for our city. It's not doing any good for our communities. We need to think about what this city is for and what this city represents and all of the houses and the community that this place has become. This will bring some more traffic, not as much as the Ryan project that staff was able to push through and allow to go through. And I know this is the same way. I don't have anything further unless you have any questions.
And Ken, your address is 2040 South Alma School?
Yes, I have a business location there.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
So council, that's the 2 comment cards we did receive in our agenda up here. There was also a letter from the chamber supporting this item, I believe. And with that, any questions or comments before we take a motion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Orlando.
Mayor, on Monday night, we had staff give a brief presentation of the airport plan. I think it's appropriate for, I don't know if Mr. Cal said late Monday night, for us to have staff talk briefly about that process and what that entails and how the residents, as well as the landowners, developers, and everyone, stakeholders could have a say into that development of that process. And airport general plan?
So correct me if I'm wrong, what you're asking is for staff to give a brief presentation that takes us through the airport to P&Z, is that correct?
Yeah, what we talked about Monday, this whole area plan, the general area plan, outside the fence.
Okay. Kevin, Mr. Mayo, can you briefly address this for Councilmember Orlando and for our audience?
Mayor, council members, happy to do so. So what we discussed on Monday night was kind of parallel to, I guess, next to, I guess, this the zoning request. There is a currently underway an airport master plan update, and that is an update to the airport property that is owned by the airport for its master plan, reviewing it and updating it. Parallel to that, we've just started the procurement process to select a consultant to bring forward and start the process of our air park area plan update. The original air park area plan was adopted 20 years ago, 1998. It served us very well, but it is time to update that. And in fact, council budgeted through last year's budget process the funds to update that area plan. That was what we discussed on Monday night, was the process with that. I really anticipate that being probably a 9-month process, maybe slightly longer. It does kind of have to follow parallel but slightly behind the airport master plan update. That process will look at the 9 square miles that currently is encompassed by that air park area plan. As part of that update, we will be reviewing kind of the vacant land that's left, development trends and things like that. There will be significant community input as part of that. Kind of similar to our general plan that we updated in 2016. Not only did we use kind of the traditional community meetings, that we'll have multiple different ones in different venues, we'll also be utilizing all the digital means that we have at our disposal, including social media and things like that. So that process is just starting. We are, like I said, we are in the process of securing the RFP to get a consultant on board, and then kind of on our website and things like that, we will be starting that process and making it as publicly visible as we can, so that the public can participate in that. Okay.
And Kevin, while you're up, one of the individuals also had mentioned about the height and the airport. Is there a, I know we covered this on Monday, but in terms of the airport elevations for this particular development, would you care to address that too, please?
Mayor, I'd be happy to. So as part of the Ferguson review, we had multiple meetings with the airport manager, and graphics were generated. The slope approach and departure angle slope surfaces were studied to ensure that this building is far outside of it, and it is significantly outside of it based on its distance from the end of the runway. But the height was studied in relation to any potential conflicts with airport operations.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Welcome.
Council.
Mayor?
Councilmember Lopez.
Well, maybe I should ask questions. I was going to make a motion.
Oh, is there any questions? All right. Councilmember
So-
Lopez.
So before I make a motion, I do want to make a statement that I do appreciate, again, the public coming out and making comments. And I would also like to clarify that simply because P&Z or a board may not agree or does not vote the way a presenter may come before us, doesn't mean we're not listening. We do take all these into consideration. I truly believe that all of our planning and zoning commissioners are listening to what the public has to say, is taking that input, and does make recommendations and changes. Hence why we have on many of these, again, a lot of changes. I don't think there's a development that's ever come before us that has hit it out of the park on the first time that they have not made adjustments due to public meetings or working with staff. So again, just because something may not go your way doesn't mean that we're not listening or care about what you're presenting. So in the Ryan's companies, I know it was brought up again, it gets brought up a lot. That is a very complex issue. I do have the link for the meeting that was held, the 2.5-hour meeting that we held for that one. So it's a very complex issue that I don't think we want to relitigate ever again. So I would like to make a motion for the Thursday, November 7th regular meeting of the Chandler City Council for approval of our consent agenda for items 1 through 42.
I'll second. All right, council, there is a motion
Mayor,
and a second.
I'm sorry. We had item number 39. There's a question on whether it should be a Series 7 or a Series 17 liquor license.
Okay,
And I'm wondering if Don I believe the applicant is here, and he's the one that called it to our attention.
I'm sorry, I didn't see, is there a card for that, or did I miss that?
No, on the agenda, there may be a typo where it says Series 17, it should be Series 7.
Okay,
Is that correct, Don?
Actually, Series 7 is a beer and wine bar liquor license. This is an extension of premise. And I know a temporary extension is a Series 18, but I'm trying to confirm Series 17.
Okay.
So it is a permanent extension of premise. We have both of those on here. I'm not sure, though, if it's an 18 or a 17. From what I understand, it is a 17, but
Okay. Is the applicant here?
Could I give my address?
please.
Jared Michael Rapinski, 3612 West Harrison Street in Chandler. Is that a city of Chandler numeric system, or is that the state?
it is a state license.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different liquor license series numbers. And I think the confusion is this a typo? Should it be a Series 18 or a 17? It's not a 7, but it could be, as far as I understand, it's a 17. but
The state liquor license, it's a Series 7.
Yes, it is a state liquor license.
Correct, and it's a Series 7 beer and wine bar license.
It's a 7.
Correct.
Okay. And it is requesting a permanent extension of premise, though.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Yeah. So unless the city of Chandler does something different than the state.
It does not.
Okay. And while we're making corrections then, and although I'm not here for that, number 38, Series 18 liquor license for American Legion, those are Series 14s. They're club licenses, it's private.
Okay, so just
But I'm
to
not here for that, just to point it out while we're making corrections.
clarify, that is a temporary extension of premise, and the state number on an extension of premise, a temporary, is a Series 18. So it's extending the 14 for a temporary extension.
Okay. Just so we're clear, the state doesn't label us, when you extend a premise, you have a liquor license, let's say you're a 6, a bar license, and you want to extend it. All you're doing is extending a 6. They don't relabel or reseries an extension, whether it be permanent or temporary. Unless you guys do.
Yeah.
In which case, I'm not familiar with you guys doing that numbering system unless you change something.
So, Mayor, if I may,
Councilmember
instead of us
Lucas.
getting education on the liquor
Yeah,
licenses
right.
right now, so could we just clarify it again for 39? You are requesting a 7?
It is a Series 7,
You're, again,
and we are extending a Series 7 on a permanent basis.
permanent extension of your premises of your Series 7 liquor license?
Correct.
Okay. So we're asking for, okay.
Okay.
I will just clarify one more time, at the state level, when you do on our agenda, when you do an extension of your series, they label it an 18 or a 17, whether it's temporary or permanent. But I will follow up with the city manager's office on that as well, and the city clerk.
I guess one last thing. A Series 18 is a craft distiller's license, and a Series 17 is a direct shipment license.
You're
So-
correct. Series 18D
Okay.
is a craft distiller. There's different letters. So it is just a numbering system that's done for permanent and temporary. So I apologize for the confusion tonight. But I will make sure that the city clerk's office has the correct label for an extension of premise.
But for you, Don, you believe that on item 39, the Series 17 is the correct nomenclature, it's the correct numbering for a permanent extension of premises?
I believe that a permanent extension of premise is a 17.
Okay.
Correct. I can follow up with you too if you'd like, sir.
Please.
Okay,
right.
I will certainly do
Okay.
that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Don, will this prevent Improv Mania from extending and being able to move forward?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, it will not. Your action tonight is just given approval for that extension. We will follow up with the state to make sure that the approval goes through appropriately.
We'll get it right, yeah?
Yes,
Okay, great.
absolutely.
All right,
So my motion,
Councilmember
previous
Lopez.
motion stands as previously stated.
and I'll second that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments, council? All right, please vote.
Councilmember Lopez, or Councilmember Orlando?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you, council. Next on our agenda tonight, we have two action items. Item number 43, item number 44. I'd like staff to make a presentation, please. Hello, David.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Items 43 and 44 are related to each other, and so staff has prepared a presentation to address both concurrently. Both items, the total request of both items is 4 different parts. The first one on the list is a request for annexation and initial city zoning of Ag 1, agriculture zoning. And this is the subject of item 43 on council's agenda tonight. Item 44 on council's agenda are the remaining requests, the remaining 3 requests, which are requests to rezone from agriculture to planned area development for single-family residential, a request for preliminary development plan approval for housing layout, or the subdivision layout only, and a request for preliminary plat approval. Little background, the subject site is more than 7 acres. It's located on the north side of Riggs Road and east of Lindsay Road. It's currently in the county, zoned rural 43. Ordinance number 4884 is the subject of item 43, which again is the request to annex the subject site and to grant initial city zoning of agriculture. A public hearing was held for this annexation last year on May 24th, 2018. The subject site is located, surrounded by subdivisions. The Falcon Estates subdivision is located on the north side. Vasaro subdivision is located to the east. Sungroves is on the south side of Riggs Road, and then immediately west of the subject site are 3 parcels that are currently in the county that are also zoned Rural 43. The subject site is located within the neighborhoods category of the general plan, which allows a range of residential densities. In the Southeast Chandler area plan, it designates the site more specifically as rural agrarian character, which allows for very low densities as well as traditional suburban densities up to 2.5 dwelling units per acre. The proposed development includes 16 lots, which comes out to a density of 2.19 dwelling units per acre. The subdivision layout is designed with 6 lots on the northern border, which are just over 13,000 square feet in size. On the center of the subdivision are 10 lots that are a little bit smaller at 8,450 square feet in size, and there's a 60-foot wide landscape track with a play structure and a ramada going through that center block. The distance between the east and west property lines to that center block, to those lots, is 74 feet. So there's a substantial setback between the eastern and western property lines. On the south side of the subdivision is an 86-foot wide open space tract, which aligns with the vision from the Southeast Chandler area plan to create open and agrarian environment with larger setbacks along the arterial streets. Again, the proposal for the preliminary development plan is for the subdivision layout only. It does not include the housing product. A separate PDP application will be required for housing product at a later time. However, the rezoning that's proposed does limit the future homes to single-story only. With respect to the proposed standards, staff would like to point out that the rear yard setback for the northern 6 lots is twice the distance of a typical setback for similar sized lots. The typical setbacks for similar sized lots would be 20 feet, and the applicant is proposing 40 feet on those northern 6 lots. In addition, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a condition requiring a minimum of 10 feet for the side yard setbacks, again on those northern 6 lots. And so those northern 6 lots will have a substantial rear yard setback and a larger side yard setbacks compared to the other lots in that subdivision. Another step that was added by the Planning Commission was to limit the building height of the accessory structures in those rear yards of those 6 lots. So the accessory structures would be structures such as the open-air ramadas, workshops. Those would be limited to 15 feet maximum height. The other standards proposed by the applicant are typical, and I'd be happy to talk about those in more detail if Mayor and Council would like me to. The applicant did go through a extensive public outreach process. 2 neighborhood meetings were held in 2018, one on March 20th and the other one on June 12th. Following those 2 neighborhood meetings, some of the residents from the Falcon Estates neighborhood invited the applicant to meet with them to perform a height simulation using poles that would demonstrate what a 25-foot high house would look like, or how much of that house would be visible 40 feet away from the northern property line as viewed from the Falcon Estates backyards from those residents. In between the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, the applicant continued to meet with the leader of the opposition of those neighborhoods to try to reach an agreement. Unfortunately, an agreement was not reached. Currently, there is opposition from the Vasaro neighborhood. 82 out of 116 lots signed a petition in opposition to the proposal, and 29 out of the 30 lots from Falcon Estates signed a petition in opposition. The property owners who are immediately adjacent to the subject site who signed in opposition are identified in the red outline on that map, and they have triggered a legal protest per the city code regulations. And what that means is, in order for the city council to approve the rezoning tonight, at least 3/4 of the council, or 5 out of 7 of the council members, would have to vote in favor of that rezoning request. The residents in opposition expressed concerns that the lots are too small, they're too dense. They would like the lots to be about the same size as the Falcon Estates and Vasaro neighborhoods, which again are around 18,000 to 20,000 square feet in size. And that would, in effect, limit or reduce the number of lots on that north side from 6 to 4 lots. And again, just in general, their main concern was with too dense and the potential diminish of property values. The applicant has offered a number of concessions in response to residents. With respect to the northern side of the subdivision, the applicant reduced the number of lots from 7 to 6. The applicant increased the side yard setbacks from 5 and 10 to 5 and 12. And then subsequently, the Planning and Zoning Commission added a stip requiring a minimum of 10 feet on each side, which the applicant is in agreement. The applicant doubled the rear yard setbacks, again, as I mentioned previously, and the applicant reduced the maximum lot coverage from 60% lot coverage to 50% lot coverage. In addition, the applicant has agreed to prohibit lofts, livable attic space, balconies, and roof decks on those 6 lots on the northern side to protect the privacy of the adjacent neighbors. With respect to concessions made to the entire subdivision, the applicant has agreed to limit the homes to single story on the entire subdivision and limit the building height to 22 feet. The applicant has agreed to plant citrus trees instead of ash and pistache along the eastern border, and this was in response to residents' concerns that taller trees might litter or drop litter on their backyards. The applicant has also agreed to maintain access to the irrigation canal on the northeast corner of the site, and the applicant will also leave the irrigation canal as is along the northern border, and the staff's understanding that the irrigation canal is a private property issue that will continue to be worked on between the applicant and the end user of that irrigation. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval with 3 conditions. First, to add gates to the community, which would make the streets into private streets and which would require the HOA to maintain those streets. The second, again, I mentioned to limit or to require that the side yard setbacks are a minimum of 10 feet on each side. and then limiting the building height of the accessory structures to a maximum of 15 feet in the rear yards. Staff recommends approval, finding conformance with the general plan and finding conformance with the intent of the Southeast Chandler area plan, as well as finding that the proposed development surpasses the typical development standards, such as the rear yard setbacks and the building heights and so on and so forth. I would like to point out and bring this council's attention to an addendum memo that was distributed on the dais tonight. And that memo identifies potential motions to approve the request. It is staff's understanding that the developer is requesting relief from the P&Z STIP that would require a gate to be added to the subdivision. And so staff has prepared the memo with the potential motions to approve as shown on the screen as a guide to help council determine what motions to make if council were to approve with a gate versus without a gate. So if council were to approve the development with the gate, the motions would include approving the annexation and the initial city zoning, approving the rezoning, approving the preliminary development plan, and then continuing the preliminary plat to December 9th for the purpose of allowing time for that plat to be revised to add a gate on the plat and to show that those streets are private and not public streets. If it were council's desire to approve the subdivision without the gate, then the motions would include approving the annexation and the initial city zoning, motion to approve the rezoning, and a motion to approve the preliminary development plan without step number 8, which is the stipulation that was added by the Planning and Zoning Commission requiring the gate. And then finally, a motion to approve the preliminary plat as it is today. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mayor and Council.
Council members, questions?
Mayor?
Councilmember Stewart.
Hey, can you remind me again, what is the density threshold for Southeast Area Plan? And give me a little bit of background on the difference between agrarian and standard for Southeast Area Plan. And give us a little background on how that fits in the general plan and what the vote on that was.
Absolutely. Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, the Southeast Chandler Area Plan in general allows densities around 2.5 dwelling units per acre. Developers that are in the traditional, or properties that are in the traditional suburban category can go up to 3.5 dwelling units per acre, but they have to earn that. They have to add more amenities, whether it be open space, there's different options to earn that, but they have to earn it through design and creating that agrarian type of environment that the Southeast Chandler envisions. In the rural agrarian category, it allows for lower densities, but it also allows for traditional suburban densities up to 2.5 dwelling units per acre. And again, they have to earn that, and they have to show that it's compatible with the adjacent properties. And how that fits into the general plan identifies the Southeast Chandler Area Plan as the guiding document with more specific land use guidance for the 14.5 square mile area in Southeast Chandler. It's generally speaking east of Arizona Avenue and south of Ocotillo Road. And I believe you're asking the approval rating for the general plan?
That was a general plan amendment, right? That was a general plan amendment, the Southeast Area Plan to sort of guide what could be built there. So I'm understanding there's like apartments can't be there and some other things. Is that right?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, it is not a general plan amendment per se. It is an area plan that further defines the land use vision for that area. But the general plan and the area plan are two separate documents.
Okay.
But you are correct in saying that multifamily and densities higher than 3.5 dwelling units per acre are not allowed in Southeast Chandler.
Based on the area
railroad
plan, but
tracks.
not voted on in a general plan.
That's correct.
Okay. So it's an overlay.
That's correct.
Okay.
A more specific land use overlay.
And what was this neighborhood? Did you say the density?
2.19 dwelling units per acre.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions for David? All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite the applicant. If you'd like to speak to us, then we will get to the comment cards, the speaker cards, and then invite the applicant back up again before we consider this. Again, please state your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Seth Keeler. My address is 1121 West Warner Road, Suite 109, Tempe, Arizona, 85284. Very grateful for the opportunity to present tonight. Thank you for allowing me to come here. Thank you, David, for your presentation. This just shows the general area of our project, and with the densities to the north. Falcon Estates, like was mentioned, is 1.56. Vasaro is 1.5. To the west of us is Shadow Ridge at 3.5. And then to the south, we have Lone Tree at 4.8 units to the acre. Sun Groves have 7 units to the acre, and also 5 units to the acre, which is south of our project. We are, as David mentioned, 2.19 dwelling units to the acre. This was the original submittal that we made when we began this project. The area highlighted in yellow is a property owned by Mr. Hildebrandt. And when we submitted our pre-application, we had a plan for this entire area. We had lot sizes of 60 wide by 120. And at the time, when we met with Mr. Hildebrandt, there was just there was not a meeting of the minds on how the deal would work, so we proceeded without his property. This shows the next plan. Based on feedback that we got, there was we increased the lots to the north to 70 by 120. The lots within the middle interior, 65 by 120, and the lots closest to Riggs were 60 by 117. We had a total of 21 lots. There was another revision after more feedback. This one was 74 wide by 150 on the north. Those lots came in at 11,100 square feet. And then the middle tier came in at 65 by 130. That plan was 17 lots. And this is the plan as we had our interface with neighbors, as David mentioned, March 20, June 12, September 18, and September 26. The 2 in September were the ones where we met in the backyards and had the poles to visualize what the heights could be. The concessions at that point in time, we reduced our lots to 17. Our density was 2.3. That's when we brought up our willingness to have a 40-foot setback for the north lots along lots 1 through 7. Our neighbor's zoning case has 25. We were willing to commit to a 22-foot height restriction on our homes and do single story on our lots. Our neighbor's zoning case says 35 feet with 2-story. We had our planning commission in May, and there was a lot of opposition, so we were encouraged to go to design review board to get more focus and more detail on that. That meeting was held June 19. And since the design review board, and in that meeting, I should say, I was encouraged to meet with Reed Jacobson. So the residents to the north, Falcon Estates, and the residents to the east, Vasaro, had asked that I work with Reed Jacobson directly. And so I had a meeting with Mr. Jacobson June 26, July 1st, July 22nd, and August 23. In addition, there were some emails and phone calls. I also had some phone calls and emails with Richard Hildebrandt, who is our neighbor to our western boundary. We went back to Planning Commission, and after my meetings with Mr. Jacobson, there were some additional concessions that we were willing to make. We dropped our lots to the north from 7 to 6. That made our northern lots 87 wide by 150 deep, so 13,000 square foot lots, and our density went down even more to 2.19. That gave us a total of 16 lots, and as David mentioned, side yard setbacks were 5 and 12, and we agreed to the stipulation from Planning Commission to have 10 on both sides of those northern lots, of lots 1 through 6. We also agreed no lofts or livable attic space or balconies or roof decks. The accessory structure was limited to 20 foot from the rear wall, and another stipulation from Planning Commission was that the rear structures have a cap on their height of 15 feet, and we agreed to that also. We agreed to have the citrus trees and bushes on the east side on Pearl Drive so that it would prevent a lot of foliage spillage over to our neighbors at Vasaro. We were also asked to have street light shielding. And what I mentioned was we're willing to shield the lights to the extent that it's allowable by the city, because we don't own the lights, the city would own the lights. We also talked about leaving the irrigation ditch on the north side of the lots, and that would be eventually when Mr. Hildebrandt's property gets developed and that water is no longer needed, then that easement would be abandoned and the ditch would be removed. So this shows the development with the lots to the north, 6 lots, they're 87 by 150, a 16 lot total subdivision. The topic of the irrigation ditch came up in the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is just a screenshot of our survey. And as you can see, the north wall that belongs to Falcon Estates, the distance from that wall to our current vinyl fence is 10 feet. And the concrete irrigation ditch sits within that 10 feet area. In our plan, we are planning to keep that 10-foot easement for Mr. Hildebrandt's irrigation use. And in the rear of lots 1 through 6, you can see there's a view fence on this picture. So the view fence we proposed that, staff said that would work to keep the potential children from getting into an irrigation ditch and having any accidents. The irrigation ditch is in the northeast corner of the site, and we've also allowed for a 10-foot easement for Mr. Hildebrandt to drive up here and access the irrigation ditch. As you know, Mr. Hildebrandt hired an attorney whose name is Ken Vaughn, and they submitted a letter last Friday. I received the letter from staff, and I contacted Mr. Vaughn and read through some of the concerns that were addressed in his letter. I talked with him today, and I sent over this picture to Mr. Vaughn, and this just shows our pre-plat. So from the very beginning, we've always had the intention of providing an easement for Mr. Hildebrandt. It shows it up on our pre-plat. It's a 10-foot private irrigation easement to be recorded by a separate instrument. This shows the same pre-plat, but just zoomed in a different area, and this has the access that he could get to so that he could access the irrigation gate. One of the things that we did not want to agree to from the stipulations was a gated community for our project. Gates were not supported by staff. Gates would create an economic disadvantage in terms of the HOA dues for our community compared to those that we surround. We've been working with a builder, Balago Homes, and they have been in other gated communities. He said the HOA would be around $300 per month compared to Vasaro, which my understanding, according to MLS, is $160, and Falcon Estates is $190. Instead of gates, I apologize, streets become private when they are gated, and they become maintained by the HOA. Instead of gates, we dropped another lot to the north, and the challenge with gates on a subdivision that is small is the 16 lots then carry a pretty heavy burden to maintain and pay for those streets over time. This shows the open space of our community. We're at 22.92% open spaces, which is pretty generous considering the size of our development. This shows the amenities in the park, some of the materials that we are planning on, the entry monumentation, the theme walls. I really want to just highlight the fact that from the very beginning, we have always wanted to do a very nice, very beautiful project to fit the surrounding beautiful projects that exist in this area, and we feel that that's what we're delivering to the city. David mentioned the Southeast Chandler area plan, and you can see number 4 is our project. I'm going to talk really briefly about 3 other projects that are also within the same Southeast Chandler area plan. As noted, the rural agrarian character allows for traditional suburban densities. So the Orchard Heights has minimum lot sizes of 7,200, and you can see the surrounding lot sizes around this community. There's 60 units on 18 net acres. They're at 3.3 density. They have a 55% lot coverage, and their side yard setbacks are 5 and 10 with 15 rear feet for their rear lot. This is the Lucinda project. It has minimum lot size of 7,014 square feet, and you can see the surrounding densities for this project. To the north, about acres size, and to the south, there's 4,714 square foot lots. They have 41 units on 13 acres at 3.2 density, 7,000 square foot minimum lot size. They have a 60% lot coverage, 5 and 10 side yard setbacks, and along Riggs Road, they're required to have 10 and 10. And they have a 20-foot rear yard setback. And this is the last one I just wanted to draw your attention to. It's Windermere. And this one has 10,000, average of 10,000 square foot lot size, surrounded by something to the north, which is almost equivalent in size. To the west, 18,000, and a lot smaller to the south. All three of these projects were platted in 2018. All three of these projects are in the Southeast Chandler area plan, and all three of them are surrounded by lots that are larger than what was approved. That concludes what I wanted to share with you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I think Councilmember Orlando, his call dropped, so we're going to wait. We want to make sure that he's able to hear and participate in this. So if you hear some noise, I don't want to interrupt you. So if we take a couple seconds here, thank you. Is this what noise sounds like? Thank you for your patience, everybody. It's important that all of our council is able to participate. Councilmember Orlando?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Continue.
Would you like me to go back to some, or am I?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions for the applicant? Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just one question, and I understand the area associated with the canal is something that you're going to work out with your neighbor there. How do you intend to make sure that this view fence has a good view for the future? Is someone going to have exclusive right to that, or what about the people that live in your community? How you'll have that sorted out, I imagine?
Through the mayor, vice mayor, are you referring to the view fence that's in the rear lots?
Yeah, there's the 10-foot section there that there's a canal, but oftentimes areas like that that are not in regular use have weeds and growth and that sort of thing. And is that, I'd just like to know how you intend to assure that that's not a problem in the future.
Mayor, or through the mayor, vice mayor, we have committed to have all the open space maintained by the HOA. So I'm going to go back to the slide, maybe easier to show it this way. So the area where he can access the gate would be maintained by the HOA, and then the easement where there's an open ditch, that area we could also have for weed control. If there is a problem with the open ditch, what I explained to Ken, Mr. Vaughn, the attorney for Mr. Hildebrandt, was today we're using the ditch. We're using irrigation off the ditch, but once we go to develop and we stop using the ditch, then the person that continues to use the ditch would be the one that would maintain the ditch, the actual concrete structure. If there's weeds, the HOA would be the one to have weed control in that area. But in terms of continued maintenance of the concrete ditch, then that would be something that Mr. Hildebrandt would be responsible for. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much.
Other questions, Council? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. Maybe this is a question for Kevin or David. Do we have any other situations like this where this is formerly county land? Do we have any other situations like this with the ditch, and how is that managed? I mean, do you have any examples off the top of your head that you can tell us how it works?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, typically what happens is the developer will tile the ditch, will underground the ditch, and usually there's no issue with that. However, because there was an issue with the end user of the irrigation in the situation, and this is the first that I've come across this situation where the end user did have an issue with undergrounding the ditch and the improvements that were proposed, we were advised by their city attorney's office that it really is a private property issue that needs to be worked out before with both private property owners.
Thank you. So we don't have any other areas in Chandler that you've ever experienced this issue with a development and a ditch, and
Through the mayor,
is this unique?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Thanks, David.
All right, seeing no additional questions. So I have a few comment cards. I've got some speaker cards. Several people have ceded time to some others, so I'd like to first read the comment cards. And then there's a couple speaker cards. I'm not sure if they've ceded time or if they actually wanted to speak. So I'm going to ask you, in that case, if you would like to cede your time, or if you, since we're going to be ceding some time to the others, if you're an individual speaker, apart from, I have some people ceding time to Mr. Hildebrand, Mr. Jacobson, and Ms. Sarkassian. I'll give you 2 minutes if you would like to speak separately from those, but other than that, we'll kind of allocate time accordingly. For comment cards, I've got a comment card from Laura Newcomb from 5900 5900 South Gemstone Drive, who opposes the development, and she would like it to remain agriculturally zoned. I have a comment card from Terry Jacobson, who opposes the Mountain View development. And I have a comment card from Robert O'Hara, who supports the development, approving with the stipulations from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Those are all the comment cards that I have in front of me at this time. For speaker cards, and again, there, like I mentioned, there were several that, so actually I see, Terry, you have a speaker card and a comment card. Are you ceding your time to your husband, or? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I do have a card from Mr. Robert O'Hara. He supports the development. Mr. O'Hara, did you want to speak? All right, you may come up. You've got 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Robert O'Hara. The address is 4321 East Taurus Place in Chandler. I'm here both as an individual representing myself as a homeowner in Vasaro and also as the president of the Vasaro Homeowners Association. At an earlier board meeting, the board had voted to support the efforts of Mr. Jacobson and the homeowners in Falcon Estates to oppose certain aspects of the development. We have observed what's been going on, have presented a number of positions in Planning and Zoning Commission meetings as well as the neighborhood meetings. We believe that the tract should be developed. Chandler is a city that's been cited quite often as a very desirable place on many different lists throughout the country. And we think that developing that parcel will only increase that. The objections that we do have are to only the quality of the development going on there. We object to the developer's position that this should not be a gated community. I'd refer back to his presentation where he said, here are 3 small communities with varying size lots that were recently developed along Riggs Road. I would point out that all 3 of those are gated communities. I would suggest that we adopt the preliminary development plan as proposed with the stipulations included from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hara. Any questions or comments? All right. Next, I'd like to invite up Mr. Hildebrand, who is the neighbor to the west, if my sense of direction is correct. And Deanne Hildebrand has also ceded her time to Richard Hildebrand. And sir, I'd like to give you 4 minutes, please.
Wants the picture that's on the laptop up.
Okay. Can we get some help with that from somebody, please? David? It's up? Okay. Is this?
Put this picture up there. Okay. Oh, it's up there. Okay.
All right. Mr. Hildebrand, can you state your name and address for the?
Richard Hildebrand. I live at 144 East Riggs Road, Chandler, Arizona. My attorney apologizes for not being here. He had other commitments. So I'm going to muddle through this a little bit. I spoke with Mr. Keeler one time, last 3 or 4 months. We discussed my opposition with the irrigation ditch, with the pipeline. I only had one opposition with the pipeline because I would rather have a pipeline. I really would. But the stipulation was, show me from a hydrologist that it will work. That's it. If it works, I'm for it. Mr. Keeler has not contacted me about that at all. I mean, that would solve a lot of problems. About 30 days ago, I got a phone call from the City Planning and Zoning Department that said that they're going to do away with the pipeline because I don't want it. It's not true. They're going to leave the ditch there. I said, fine, leave the ditch. Make the ditch to where it works for both of us. Every subdivision in the Chandler area that has an irrigation ditch that runs through it, that supplies water to somebody else, that subdivision maintains that ditch. Period. Mr. Keeler thinks I need to maintain the ditch. Okay? Now, I suggested a 20-foot easement so that we could have 10 foot on the south side of the ditch for maintenance, to run a small piece of equipment through there to clean the ditch and haul the dirt away, the sand away. He's allowing 2 foot. How many of you people can walk 600 feet on a 2-foot strip with a fence on one side and a ditch on the other side without feeling like you're going to fall in the ditch? Very few people. The 10 foot is great, but when you take 5.5, almost 6 feet of ditch out of that 10 feet, and you put a 2-foot easement on each side of it, you have no room. And you have no room to get rid of any waste, any dirt. If somebody has to maintain the ditch or haul concrete down to fix the ditch, how are you going to do it? Walk through somebody's backyard that's got a pool with a cement mixer? Not going to work. I suggested a wall on the south side of that 20 foot and put concrete from one side to the other to control all the weeds. Now we got a secure ditch, open ditch, that the kids are not going to climb the wall. They're not going to see it. Nobody's going to drown. Mr. Keeler wants to put a fence, which I can't see. How tall is that fence? 6 feet. How many school kids can climb a 6-foot fence? especially when it's a wrought iron fence. Okay, now, I want to direct this here to city attorney.
Mr. Hildebrandt, how much, you're really talking to us, but how much more time do you want?
Just a few more minutes.
Okay, you're
Okay,
addressing us, sir.
This is enticing, this plan with this wrought iron fence is enticing a lawsuit. Okay? They're going to sue me because the kid climbed the fence because it was, hey, 6-foot fence and there's open water there. They're going to sue me. Subdivision's going to get sued. And the city of Chandler is going to get sued. Everybody on a lawsuit gets dragged into it. The last lawsuit I was into lasted 7 years. I don't think the city of Chandler wants a lawsuit that's going to last that long, or even close to that, over somebody drowning. Make it right. That's all I'm saying. Make it right. Make it safe.
Thank you, Mr. Hildebrandt.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Reed Jacobson, and Reed has had Tim Smith and Lori Smith, and I'm also guessing Terry Jacobson, seed time.
She wouldn't do it. I asked her and she refused.
So Reed, 5 minutes, is that good, sir?
Thank you, sir. No, it's not. I'd like a heck of a lot more, but I'll take it.
Thank you.
All right, real quick.
If you could
It's
also
very-
state your name and address.
Oh, sure. Reed Jacobson, 4133 East Scorpio Place, Chandler. It's really crucial for us that those stipulations, if there's going to be any suggestion later that when we're talking about building height within the 40 feet of the rear setback, that we're talking about actual building height from grade to the highest point of the roof versus the city code's definition of building height, because that would allow basically a 30-foot high roof in the back if it was anything but flat. So I want to make sure, you're not talking about anything like that, correct? You're talking about actual height from grade to the peak of the roof, right? You weren't listening. Okay, never mind. So I just want to be clear. I just want to be ultra clear that that's what we're talking about so we don't have a ringer there later. Yeah, the height simulation, that was really great. It's a big deal. He came out and he put up poles. They made fun of us for suggesting it. Then they came out and did it. And then after they did it, we said, are we going to have another meeting? We're going to talk about this? No, we're going to go ahead with that anyway. So thanks for showing us how horrible it'll be. The summary of concerns that David mentioned, he's absolutely correct. Those are the summary of concerns. Those are the very same concerns, except he mentioned property values. I'll talk about that in a second. Same concerns David mentioned in his letter of November 2018, both to us in response to our letters and to Bowman, the engineer on this project. In terms of property values, it's not really about property values. I've lost money on property before, and I'm sure I will again. It's a shame if I have to on this one because I bought this at the low end of the market, but that's not really the point. I plan never to leave there. I plan to live there, and it's about enjoying your property. There are 3 properties backing up to 1, and no other subdivision that was cited by Mr. Keeler, and it's now up to about 9 or 10, and I've talked to each one of you about those. Not one of those has the impact like this has on us. Also, all of those subdivisions in those 9, not just the 3, are all gated communities, except for one, Whispering Heights, and that's one where they put 36,000 square foot lots next to the rural lots. By the way, in response to Councilman Stewart's question, I believe that the Southeast Chandler area plan is part of the general plan because it's incorporated by reference. And I'm sure they can correct me on that, but unless this city is different than any other one, that's what it is. So it is an actual part of the general plan. The dwelling units per acre issue, there's a little discrepancy in Mr. Keeler's map. It's not the same as the map shown by Mr. DeLatorre, but that's not really our point. There was a suggestion that, because again, it was going great, and I thought we were going to get through it without a suggestion that they gave up lots for us. But right at the end, he said, yeah, well, under his concessions, he said, we went to 17. That's not what happened. That's all because of what the city said to do. He went to 16 during the course of our negotiations. That's the only concession in number of lots he made to us. The last meeting, August 23rd, that was on his list of meetings we had. And yes, that's the last meeting we had. That's when we conceded the gate. We conceded the gate because it's more important to us not to have the wall of homes. So we were still at 4, we would have accepted 5, but we gave the gate away because that's the thing he complained about from the get-go. That was the worst thing that could ever happen, according to him. So we gave it up, hoping we could get what was more impactful to us cured. Once we gave that up, he had no interest in meeting with us ever again. His response to us on September 16th was not to move 1 inch on any item. Also, in his list of concessions, he says a 10 by 10 side yard setbacks. Not so. That was one of the stipulations from planning and zoning. That's not a concession to us. That was because that's what planning and zoning said so. The ditch, we can talk about that all day, but my understanding is that the city is saying that's not our issue. So I think at this point, it's unfortunate Mr. Hildebrand had to get a lawyer because since August 6th, Mr. Keeler hasn't responded. The last conversation between the two of them was he told Hildebrand that he would talk to an engineer about Richard's concerns that there was not enough fall from east to west and that line had become clogged. He was going to talk to an engineer, get back to him. Not one more conversation occurred after that time. That was the end of it until he called De La Torre and said, well, we'll keep it open. Now I understand that then they flipped back. They wanted to close because they came in and met with all you guys and said, well, we have Hildebrand on the record from the planning and zoning meeting. He says he wants it undergrounded. And what's what we're going to do for him? So, but now I understand from today, unless I misunderstood, now he's flipped back to open. So this thing is an evolving issue over there, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I assume it's going to be handled by lawyers, and it's unfortunate that that was required. And in closing, I have 14 seconds. This might take me a better part of a minute. I will say this. Oh, real quick. It will cost them $25 a month extra for their 16 homes to cover the expenses of a road and gates maintenance, because we in Falcon Estates have twice the amount of roads that they do. We spend $12,000 every 4 years. $12,000. We also maintain our gate at the tune of $1,200 to $1,500 a year. And our subdivision is very old compared to this. So basically, for $25 a month, they can fund the entire cost of all of that. And in closing, I will say, I had one of these across from my ranch. I'm in the county and across from Phoenix. And I had a square mile of little small ranchers all up in arms about this subdivision. And because they come in and then people don't understand what the black specks are on their windows and all the rest of it, because they just don't know. Well, you know, the city of Phoenix and their greatness, we worked it out with the builder. But thankfully, we were able to work it out with the builder. And we got a hell of a lot more than we're going to get out of this one. But we worked it out. But not one of those, the only one council person that would meet with us, the only one was a councilman who has that area right across the street where this property was. None of them would meet with us. And he did bring the mayor's chief of staff. So
thank you, Mr.
it's
Jacobson.
wonderful we have those rights, but even though you got the right, doesn't mean that people are open to actually talking to you. And you guys did, and you did on the phone, and we sure appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And Monique, yeah, I was just going to say that, also was opposed to this and deferred. You don't get any more, we already gave you a bunch, but but Monique also deferred her time to Mr. Jacobson. Thank you, Monique. There was a number. He took about 2 or 3 extra minutes there.
Well, no, they're really.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else.
Thank you, Monique. Yeah. Thank you. I've also got a number of speakers or a number of cards that have been filled out who have yielded their time to Jessica Sarkassian. Sarkisian, I'm sorry. Philip Josie is opposed to the project. He yields his time. Sharon Lightfoot also is opposed to the project, and she yields her time. Sharon Dombin-Girk, and I apologize for butchering your name. She also gives her time to Jessica. Jerry Girk would like to give his time to Jessica, and these last two oppose. And finally, last opposed, Alan Lightfoot, also yields his time to Jessica Sarkisian. Jessica, you've got 10, 12, whatever you want.
Okay.
And please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor. Jessica Sarkisian, 2733 North Power Road, Suite 102-482 in Mesa, Arizona, 85215. I'm representing the neighbors of Falcon Estates in Visaro. Wanted to just go over, I know we've met with you guys and you've heard it all and read all the meeting minutes and been bombarded with this since May. So I'm not going to try to go into too much detail, just hit the higher points again. As you know, we have the 3/4 vote petition. These are the neighbors. Seth's already gone over this. We are in the Southeast Chandler area plan in the rural area. And then this is the timeline of revisions due to staff versus neighbor comments, which Seth went over, the original pre-tech, which started out with Hildebrandt's piece, has been since removed. Also the first rezone submittal, which did not show the frontage along Riggs, which was a technical comment, so which is why it came back, and how the site plan needs to be further refined. So when it did come back, after the neighborhood meeting actually still showed the ones on fronting Riggs. But after that, then it came back with 17 lots, which is where it basically should have started at based on technical requirements for the city standards. So it started at 17 lots. And then staff comment came back also again talking about needing some changes. In May, we had our first commission hearing and it went back from there to design review. Finally in September, it went down to the 16 lots that Seth mentioned at the hearing, which was the one lot loss of the concession. And it finally addressed the 2018 comment as well, changing the lots on the north to 13,000 square feet. And here they're showing the sides of 5 and 12. And then the accessory buildings, we were told that they were requesting 22, up to 22 feet within the rear 20 feet of the setback, where city code is 15 feet. And so that's where we were discussing this with the commission in September, is it wasn't so much a concession as we were just asking them to follow code and not get another amendment to the code and go up to 22 feet for RVs. So that's where that 15 feet came from, because we felt that having a 22-foot high accessory building in the rear setback, which they had already agreed to that 40-foot setback, which we very much appreciated, that 22 feet in the rear accessory building kind of put that, didn't make any difference then if you had a 40-foot, because you still had a 22-foot tall building. So that's where that 15 feet came from. And the sides of 10 and 10, that is in the CCAP, it mentions that a lot regarding what this, so that we didn't want a 5 and 10 because of obviously you're going to have sometimes a 5 and a 5. And then you get that wall of homes. So that's where the 10 and 10 came from. It is mentioned in the CCAP as well. And then also, one of the other things is the surrounding communities, and as Reed mentioned, they feel that this project is more impactful onto the existing neighboring residents. Of all the examples that we spoke to you about here and in previous meetings regarding that the applicant and staff provided as good examples for comparison, those projects worked with neighbors, provide large buffers, transition areas, and accommodated most of the CCAP requirements without being beaten to death about it. So here's some examples. They mentioned Orchard Heights, Lucinda, and Windermere were all platted, and as I forget who mentioned it, those are also all gated. Of all the projects that are listed here, every one of them, there is one that is not gated, but I did notice it is private streets. So every project that we came and spoke to you about in previous commission and individually, every one of them has private streets. Every one of those HOAs maintains their streets and improves them. And that's what is being proposed here as well with the gate. And we don't feel that is out of line with in character with the area. So in Orchard Heights, they mentioned, again, we talked to you about this, but we don't feel this is comparable because it is buffered by a 2-acre farm on one side and streets, 2 arterials, and then you have large, very, very large agricultural rural properties in the county of 150 feet and greater away. This is also a gated community. Chandler Heights is the same thing. It is gated, and it is also surrounded by large rural agricultural. Chandler Heights, 50-foot greenbelt on the south, and rural on the other side. There was a lot of accommodations not made there. It's gated. Whispering Heights, that was another one that was mentioned. This, obviously, some of these are larger, so they're allowing the transitions to happen. However, they are doing the transitions. They are recognizing it, the neighbors. They are taking that into account. It's not just a piece of the property, the very last homes, they're doing the whole property. Because of the small size of this, the neighbors here are simply asking for the properties that directly abut them to have a better transition for them. And that has to do with, as mentioned before, not the 3 houses to 1. They would actually prefer not 4 houses, but they said the 5 houses would be okay without a gate. But with the gate, they feel the 6 houses proposed, as commission suggested, would be acceptable because it gives them a little more security. But they would be okay with 5 houses on the northern property line and no gate. And if this concern is over maintenance and all those other costs to the neighbors and the residents inside, that would be something they'd be amenable to. Lucinda, we mentioned it before, we don't even feel this is anywhere near comparable, being surrounded by industrial uses and medical marijuana uses and just the roads. It's not comparable. The impact is actually on the neighbors purchasing the homes here with what's next to them. You'll probably likely get more calls of complaints from late night storage or medical marijuana concerns or something else surrounding them for the residents going in versus kind of like an airport where the residents coming in are complaining about what was actually there before. Windermere Ranch is being on the north, has a lot of homes that are existing that are very comparable in size and almost line up with lot lines. So you're at a 1-to-1 there. And then you have the farm and the agriculture, which is non-impactful, obviously, to the east. Cooper Road and Riggs Road next to it, and SRP is right there, and obviously impactful, being that it's a large station. Pescara and I believe Jacaranda are, yes, next to each other. And both of these kind of were designed around the same time and were discussed at different, comparables that they lined up with each other. So the roads kind of backed up to each other on the east and west. So you had homes, road, homes, road, homes, road. Belazia is not in the CCAP area. However, it did follow a lot of the CCAP area design. So you have the gated, you have the large buffer, the large open spaces, and the large lots all around it. And then Mission Estates is in the traditional area. It is a smaller area, such as Mountain View Estates. It is only 26 lots and gated and has large areas of open space on the front and in the rear. And so it has a road to the south, also buffering it from the front access of the roads of the homes to the south in the county. This is a comparable to what was proposed. I don't know if I don't think I've updated this since one of the meetings, but here are conventional zoning standards that I'm showing you here. So these are as if you were to come in with a straight zoning in SF10 or SF 8.5 without a PAD, without a PDP, any of that stuff. You don't even need a development. You just come in, and these are the standards that they give you. And here you can see in a conventional zone, the max lot coverage is 40%. The minimum yard front setbacks are 20, rears are 15 and 10, minimum sides are 5 and 10. So you're already having a 5 and 10 minimum to start without doing any deviation. You're already having a 40% lot coverage, whereas they're proposing 55 and actually 50 on the northern lots, which the residents they're okay with. They're not going to object to the percentages. But I just wanted to show you that their proposal for matching and getting next to the community to the north and Vasaro, they're actually deviating less than what the conventional zoning for an 8,500 square foot lot or a 10,000 square foot lot are proposed currently in the city. And then I think we've gone over this before. So I just really wanted to hit that. And then also the fact that a lot of the things that are mentioned continually as concessions are just standard code. This whole street light thing, shielding, I mean, that's full cutoff. It's standard code. You can't have light spillage onto adjacent properties. You already all know that. The building height is 15 feet for code, and that's what we were asking them to keep, is just what is per code and not remove that 40-foot setback that they were giving us for the main building and then take it away with having a large accessory structure. The side yards the conventional zone is 5 and 10, and we just wanted them to follow the larger lot, rural type area, CCAP, which is 10 and 10. And then, let's see, what else? Yeah, we were just having concerns about, the height of the buildings and making sure, because we had the building, the proposed builder here at commission, and who talked about what he could and couldn't do, and he seemed okay with all the setbacks that were being proposed and the stipulations, and also that he could hit and do that 22-foot tall one-story structure with embellishments or whatnot, and have it meet the requirements from the pitch and not the average. And that was a concern, is that because when you have the pitch and the eve and how the definition of the city code for height goes, it's the average between pitch and eve. So essentially you'll be higher than 22 feet. And depending on how large the structure is, you could technically get up to 30 feet in some ways. And so the neighbors, just as Reed had mentioned, wanted to clarify that when they're talking about the 15 feet and the 22 feet height max, I work for developers too. I know there's all kinds of ways around things and to massage it to make it work. And we just want to make sure that they're clarifying, and the intent is there that it is 22 feet max to the top, not lower, not as an average. So those were their concerns, and we can answer any questions you may have.
Council, any questions for Ms. Sarkisian?
Mayor?
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica, and this is very thorough. The way I wrote this down and what I heard was, and I'm assuming you presented these ideas to the developer. It's 5 houses with no gate or 6 houses with a gate, an accessory structure setback agreement so that those accessory structures can't be up at the 20-foot mark, and then clarification of height. And we weren't able to come to an agreement on this before we came here today?
No.
Okay. And where was the big sticking point?
We really were happy with the stipulations at commission, the way they were. As from my understanding, the applicant is okay with the 10 and 10 and the accessory. I'm not sure on the height issue. He probably wasn't just aware of that maybe. But I think the gate is the big concern. Because without the PDP of the housing product, we're not sure what's coming. And as you all know, the zoning and the amendments and the variances that are being requested without a product, or what you can't stipulate to a product if you don't have it. So now you've opened it up for whatever could go in those setbacks and those heights. And so they're concerned about that, especially with no gate, as everything along Riggs Road is gated, of what product. If it's going to be, technically you could do any kind of level home builder at that point, and they're concerned of the quality of home, and they're hoping it's what we've heard. But as a commissioner myself, I like assurances. You never know if we all went through the recession. You plan for it, you zone it, you entitle it, but something may happen, and then you lose that builder, and then somebody else comes in, and you're not sure what it's going to be. So this provides some assurances for the neighbors, and makes them feel all warm and fuzzy that they know what they're going to get.
I absolutely know what you're talking about as it relates to zoning 10 years ago or 12 years ago, and then it comes down the pike, was exactly what happened with the Ryan property. So I know that's a separate issue, but you make a really good point when you bring up where it's zoned and then being able to move forward with the original plan. I'm pretty sure that we get, that comes to us, the pad or the final plat, comes to us before. So we're going to take a look at that before it ever gets to market, I would imagine. And so will P&Z and our design standards board. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay.
But the approval will, if it meets the design standards and the residential design standards manual, therefore, if it meets the manual, you would most likely be required to approve it in some way, whether or not, because if it didn't suit the neighbors on heights or setbacks or things like that, that's the reason. Because with code, if a plat meets the code, you have no jurisdiction to deny it. So that's the concern here, is if the product meets what's being proposed here in the PDP, I'm not sure when, in which ways you could deny it, there's different ways. So I don't know. It's just an open.
Councilmember McClemens.
So, Jessica, when I met with you and Mr. Jacobson, we went through the history, and it's been a long road. I get that. And ultimately, at the end of the meeting, I asked, well, what would make you happy? And Mr. Jacobson said, well, this won't make me happy, but I'll be satisfied if we approve it as the steps were stated for P and Z. And so after that meeting, I went to the developer to ask, are you okay with that? And they're okay with the first two. So it really comes down to the gate. Does that make sense? And I went out and did my own due diligence on gates, gated communities, smaller communities. But that's really the pinnacle decision is the gate or no gate. Correct.
Correct. And so the reason the neighbors felt they gave up the concession, and the gate came from, it was originally off the table because they had rescinded the, we need the gate if you give us the lot number that on the rear that we were asking for. However, the lot number didn't go to 5, it stayed at 6. It was only 1 lot removed. And then the gate came back up through commission and design review as a feeling of this is what will get you to where you want to be. You can keep the 6 lots, but you have to do the gate. And as I stated before, all the other comparable subdivisions, gated and not in that area that they've described over the many months, are private streets. So you can design any kind of type of gate for cost or whatnot. I mean, even in my own subdivision, we've got neighborhood guys that go and fix it because we don't want to spend any money. But as Reed mentioned, this is going to be a new subdivision. You'll have fresh streets, fresh infrastructure, fresh gate, and they'll be building up a reserve on top of it. They won't be spending that extra, whatever, $25 or $30 per month each time. It's going to go into reserve for any kind of emergencies. Hopefully you don't need it. But the sticking point is that gate, as far as Mr. Keeler, I believe, is concerned. And with other subdivisions, right now the subdivision is designed with the 50-foot, the standard right-of-way for the local street. And with a gated subdivision, they become private, and you can deviate those down, I believe, sometimes to 30 feet. So on the north and south side, you would get an extra 20 to 40 feet to do some creative stacking or whatnot in there. Is what our comment is that you can design it. It's just a matter of will you design it. And so that's the sticking point for them is they want to have, they went from like 4 lots and like, okay, well, we'll come back. We'll be more, we'll start flexing back and forth on what we can give and take. And you have to believe them. The neighbors, they came out with all kinds of things, and we scaled it back. I'm like, this is, you can't ask for those things. Let's get to what it really is. And it came down to, like you mentioned, we appreciate commission's vote and the stipulations they put in place, and we would accept those. We feel those are good. But if the gate is still an issue, then we could remove the gate, but then they want 5 in the back, not the 6. And they feel that by that having that larger size, it increases the property cost, so you get a more expensive housing product and buyer on that site for that premium lot, is what they're feeling is that would be directly what's next to them, similar to what they have, because they all have 1-story large houses as well.
So I guess what I was getting at is it really boils down to, in the gated community, does it make economic sense for a community of this size? And so I just wanted to narrow down. We're really just getting down to gate or no gate, correct?
I believe, yeah, if gate or no gate, and if it's no gate, then 1 less lot.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right. No other questions? Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
I'd like to give the applicant a chance to come up again, and then we will have a conversation up with us.
Mayor, members of the council, I too just want to express gratitude to each of you for being very accessible. That was mentioned by someone up here, and you've been accessible to both sides. Thank you very much for that. Also want to express gratitude to Mr. Jacobson for being willing to be point contact, and also for Jessica and for all of her time spent on this project. I'm not a home builder, so I didn't understand there's a difference on how the height is measured on a home. When we said 22-foot height, I leaned back and asked David for clarification. So however the city has the standard for height is how it would be measured. Since I'm not a builder, when this does get sold to a builder, the builder would then have to come back here and present to the neighbors the product. It would go through the same legislative process that I understand. They'd come back to Planning Commission and also City Council for your ultimate review. And then at that point, if the council didn't feel that it was meeting the intent, you would have the ultimate vote, yes or no, on the product being presented. One comment was made about just deviation between standard code and PAD. Well, the reason we chose to do the PAD route was that it allows for us to have deviations from the code. So the things that we were asking for are accurately represented as deviations from standard code. And our goal has been to be able to bring a quality project to this area. When we're talking about a more expensive housing product, some of the challenges that we've had have been the restrictions that have been requested over the course of time. The smaller footprint you get, the more, and especially if it's single story, the more challenging it becomes. So we, notwithstanding, the builder that we've talked to does a really good job building nice homes. He was at the Planning Commission hearing that we had just recently and talked about his desire to be at this part of this project. My challenge is, until I get, if there was a possibility of getting a yes vote here, I can't really, it's very at risk for a builder to step in this early in the process. I think that's all I wanted to have in terms of my conclusion. Thank you very much.
Council, any questions?
Mayor.
For the applicant? Councilmember Orlando.
Yeah, question for the city attorney. I heard a few times tonight that the final plat would come back to the council. Is that correct?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Orlando, I'm actually going to defer to David De La Torre on that one because I'm not totally sure.
Mr. De La Torre.
Yes, Mayor, Council, that is correct. The tonight's request is for the preliminary plat. The final plat has yet to be submitted for an application, but that is the next step. After the preliminary plat is approved, a final plat has to be applied for and reviewed by city staff. And after that, it goes to the mayor and city council for final approval. So there will be a final plat coming before the city council in the future.
David, what do you think the time of that will be? What do you believe the time of that will be?
I don't know.
Or is it up to the applicant?
Yes, I will defer to the applicant on the timing.
No, that's okay. I'm just, so it's yet to be decided. Okay.
Mayor.
Councilmember Lopez.
So that final plat, when it comes back through, does it go through the hearings again? Is it a public comment, P&Z, architectural if needed, and then to us? Or is it just straight, you kind of, I don't know if you intentionally did that, but just straight Charlotte to, it just comes to the council?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Lopez, the final plat goes straight to council. It does not go through P&Z. However, as the applicant stated, the preliminary development plan for the housing product will go through the public hearing process, neighborhood meetings, planning and zoning commission,
Okay.
and the city council.
So the development project would, the plat may not, but
Correct.
the product does. Okay, thank you. And what, I follow up, I said thank you too quickly. So at that point is, again, a good time to address quality, coloring, the building height, and then again clarifying with, again, the stipulations, however we define it, however the neighbors, again, feel that 22-foot should be defined from, measured from where to where. That would, at that time, would, again, it's open to the public for themselves to review. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Council, what's your thoughts?
Mayor.
Councilmember Stewart.
So I understand 100% where the neighbors are coming from as it relates to this project being in line and in congruence with what is going on in their neighborhood and the neighborhoods that are surrounding. And so it sounds like there's a handful of stipulations that we could ask the developer to step up and make sure that he manages. It doesn't sound like they're going to get any agreement on the, at least not in this setting, on the 5 or 6 houses with gate or no gate. That's just something I think we're gonna have to make a hard decision on. But is there a way we can add a stip to this to make sure that accessory structure isn't blocking or isn't like backed up right against their homes if we do get to a 5 or 6? Or maybe that's a question for David. Can we make sure that those accessory buildings are set back far enough to the neighbors' liking that back up to those homes?
Yes, through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, there currently is the rear yard setback for the accessory structures is 20 feet from the rear property line. So it's 40 feet for the house, and it's 20 feet for the accessory structure. That's currently what's being proposed.
And what did the neighbors ask for, 40 feet?
I believe the neighbors are okay with the 20-foot setback.
Okay, so the accessory building going to the 20-foot mark's good? Okay, they're good. At 22 feet.
No, the accessory structures, we want to be sure we're talking about normal language, 15 feet high.
15.
All we want, that's all we care about with you.
And we could stip that?
It's in there, right?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, that is actually a stip that was added by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay.
So it's in current right now.
So Mayor, may I ask a question on it?
Councilmember Lopez.
So Claire, I just kind of realized it in talking through that because of the statement that you did make. Again, 20 foot back from property line, accessory building 15 foot high, right? Again, we'll define
Correct.
that grade or foundation, whatever it may be later. But the 20 foot, is that from property line, including the easement, or is that from the gate? Same thing with the 40.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Lopez, the setback is measured from the property line, not from the edge of the easement. So
Okay.
it will be measured from the common property wall.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions, Council? Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion if I can, and that's item number 43 for annexation. It's move City Council introduce and tentatively adopt ordinance number 4884, approving annexation and initial city zoning east of the northeast corner of Riggs and Lindsay Roads as recommended by planning staff. My motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional comments? Seeing none, this is on the zoning, this piece. No. Annexation, thank you. All right. Council? Please vote.
Councilmember Orlando?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, so we voted to annex this property into the city. Item 44 has to do more with the conversation that we've been having here. Is there a motion?
Yeah.
Councilmember Lopez.
Question, do we do all three because it was 44, or do we do them individually?
Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Lopez, I would suggest that we do them, normally we do them together, but if you're going to make changes, do them separately.
So changes as.
What's the change?
As what?
Yes, I can clarify that, Mayor. You can do them together, we just need clarity on what the motion is.
Right, regarding the concessions, yes. Okay, so before I make a motion, I do want to state a couple of items here. Again, I'm happy to hear, and again, this is not just a public forum for tonight, but I'm happy to hear that not just myself or just a handful of the council members, but it sounds like all the council members made themselves available to both sides at many times. So again, this is what we're here for. This is why we get involved in our city, and this is why you get involved in the city, and we appreciate it. Like I said before, even though no matter where this goes, again, we do listen. We have a lot of items to consider. I hate to go down the road, the evolution of development projects, they don't always pan out right. Sometimes we do get things that we may not like, but again, it serves a bigger purpose. There's a debate and a balance that we need to maintain up here between community rights, individual rights, property owners' rights versus the rights of the neighbor. So we need to weigh those along with what benefits the community. Regarding the ditch, again, I'm going to kind of address that just briefly and basically check that one off. The ditch needs to be dealt with again in a private manner. Our intentions, and I think we've made it clear to this point that we're not going to get involved. We definitely want to implore the applicant and the developer, developer, and the neighbors to get together, work that out, but we're not going to get involved. And because of motion, you'll be telling it that the gating was, again, is a difficult part. I went back and forth, did some research myself. I now live in a gated community, which in talking with some of the HOA, they're not very happy that we're in a gated community. Even the neighbors aren't happy about it sometimes. But looking at this small of a gated community and the evolution that we have of new development coming in, it's not as big as it used to be. I mean, the vast tracts of land we had in Chandler for large multi-acre, 10-acre, 100-acre developments is just not here anymore. This is all infill. A lot of people aren't looking for big homes and big lots anymore. Some are selling quickly and some are taking a long time. So with that, I think this fits in my opinion, this development does fit in with the evolution that we're at right now in Chandler, especially in the southeast area. And so I will be making a motion for rezoning to move that the City Council introduce and tentatively adopt ordinance number 4904, approving DVR 170034, Mountain View Estates rezoning from agriculture, Ag 1, to planned area development for single-family residential, subject to the condition as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission and planning staff. And I also move that the City Council approve the preliminary development plan PVR 17-0034, Mountain View Estates, for subdivision layout subject to the conditions as recommended by Planning and Zoning Commission and planning staff, except for condition number 8. And preliminary plat, I also move that the City Council approve preliminary plat PLT 17-0067, Mountain View Estates, subject to the condition as recommended by planning staff. Hope I got all the numbers right.
Second.
Okay. Did we get that right, City Attorney? Okay. Council, there is a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion?
To be clear, this is the approval of the motion to approve without a gate.
Correct. All right, seeing none. Council, please vote.
Councilmember Orlando?
No.
Motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Orlando dissenting.
All right. Council, that concludes our 2 action items. Next on our agenda is unscheduled public appearances, and I did receive a card for unscheduled public appearance from Ken McAustin again? Callister, sorry.
Ken McAllister, 2040 South Alma School Road again. This is in regards to the parcel number 303-41-024A with a PDP DVR 13-0040. This is the parcel that is just west of the Ferguson project that is currently zoned for I-1. With this PDP that was approved, it was approved in 2013, and we are over the 3-year stipulation that is in the PDP. The PDP specifically states, and I will read it verbatim. This is for the rezoning item 2. Construction shall commence above foundation walls within 3 years of the effective date of the ordinance granting this rezoning, or the city shall schedule a public hearing to take administrative action to extend, remove, or determine compliance with the schedule for development, or take legislative action to cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification. This is a classic example of what had happened with the Ryan project. It's going to happen again. Why has staff not done anything about this zoning that was done? Why was there never any legislative action? Why was there never anything done? We are 3 years past the drop dead date. They have not started construction. This PDP is so wide open that, and I can read verbatim again, that in the PDP on page 4, it says the conceptual site plan proposes approximately 410 square feet of building, blah, blah, blah. The conceptual site plan is intended to show possible configuration and building orientation of the total site area to be developed and does not represent a specific future tenant. So we're back in this same boat that we were with the Ryan project, where city staff can determine what is substantial conformance to the PDP, and they can do whatever they want and not have to come back through council in order to build anything on this site adjacent to what was just approved for the Ferguson project. I'm asking that the council direct city staff to relook at this, to figure out, if nothing's going to be done, why has it not been rezoned back to the original zoning before the zoning took place?
Mr. Callister, we can't engage you because this is unscheduled, but staff will respond to us privately and respond to you with answers for your questions.
Okay, thank you. Each of you have my email because I've sent you several emails, not specifically on this item. If you need my information, you can get it from Council Member Matt Orlando. I have constant communication with him on items. I have brought this item up to his attention. This did not hit our radar until the Ferguson project came along, and when we were in the planning and zoning meeting, it was brought up that this had already been rezoned to I-1 and that they were saying that it's okay to bring the Ferguson project to I-1 because this one was already to I-1. And so I think that there needs to be some better oversight with what is not being followed through on items that have already been voted on and things that have been done. So
Thank you, Mr. McAllister.
I ask for that diligence to start to happen within the council. Thank you.
Next on our agenda tonight are council announcements, and I'll be starting. I'd like to do a brief recap. A couple weeks ago, October 26th, we engaged over 1,000 residents on a project for our City Day. And it was an amazing turnout that resulted in a huge impact for our community up in northern Chandler. I'd like to recap some of the numbers and events. We had 37 projects that we took on in a neighborhood, Alma School and Knox area. 11 businesses engaged. We had 256 tons of rock that was spread, 470 gallons of paint, and over $150,000 invested in the neighborhoods. So I would like to extend a big thank you to Councilmember Stewart and others that participated, and the staff from our city that organized this, as well as the business and volunteers for their contribution to the Chandler Manor community for working with us. Secondly, I'd like to, I don't know whether we've got something, I did not bring mine, but the City of Chandler and State 48 clothing company has partnered to develop a cause shirt that will benefit acts of kindness, or there we are, or the AOK program, which supports Chandler families in crisis and enhances the quality of life of residents through several nonprofit programs. State 48 will donate $5 from each shirt purchase towards the AOK program. The shirts are available for purchase at state48.com and Sibley's West in downtown Chandler. You can learn more about the AOK program and nonprofit on our website. And finally, I'd like to invite all of you to attend, particularly if you live in West Chandler. I hope you will join myself and council on Tuesday, November 12th from 5:30 until 7:30 p.m. at Kyrene de la Paloma Elementary School for our Mayor on the Move. Residents will have the opportunity to engage with myself, city council members, and staff about city services and programs. And also in honor of Native American Heritage Month, the event will feature a high-energy performance of Indigenous enterprise. There will be a food truck and activities for the whole family. You can RSVP and learn more about this event on the city website. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. And I need to get one of those shirts. I like it.
We'll
Yeah,
get you covered.
Thank you. I wanted to take a moment to commend staff for taking care of an ordinance 4895, which was number 1 on your agenda tonight, as I see everybody leaping through that are still left. Staff's continually looking at ordinances within our code to be able to remove burdensome regulations. We're a big believer in being a facilitator and not a regulator. So I want to be mindful of that and commend staff for taking a look at that without being prodded to do that. So thank you very much. I also wanted to remind everyone that next week is Global Entrepreneur Week. And so if anybody that knows me, I talk about startups and entrepreneurship quite a bit. And so next week, the Chamber of Commerce will celebrate Global Entrepreneurship Week on Thursday. There will be an event, including a panel discussion with local entrepreneurs focused on taking the plunge into business ownership. So I tell my kids all the time that life is about training to be able to do your own thing one day when you get older and follow in your dad's footsteps maybe. One of them is on board, the other one may not be. So, but be sure to register in the link on the event. And then I wanted to, maybe that t-shirt would be good for the mayor for his birthday. So I wanted to wish the mayor happy birthday today.
Thank you.
And so enjoy. And I'm standing in between you and probably your birthday dinner, so I'm going to wrap it up.
Councilmember McClymons.
Happy birthday as well. So the Autonomous Vehicle Symposium, next week on Thursday, November 14th, the Chandler Chamber is hosting the Autonomous Vehicle Symposium. Yeah, the event will highlight, it's been a long night, long day for that. The event will highlight the AV sector in Chandler and those businesses contributing to the AV space. Through the panel's discussion, as attendees will hear from companies and policymakers around the state, including a panel of city staff discussing the future of autonomous vehicles in our state and beyond. So you can learn more and register for the event on the Chandler Chamber website. Also, we're heading into the holiday season, and I want to strongly encourage you to shop local, shop Chandler. 63% of the businesses in the city are small businesses. You're directly putting those dollars and putting the kids in baseball and gymnastics, et cetera. But more importantly, it impacts the tax base for the city. And then if we fiscally are responsible with those dollars, we can enhance the quality of life in our community. So my point is to shop local this holiday season through the end of the year. Shop local all the time, but specifically during this holiday season. And then lastly, as a compadre, Chandler compadre, this Saturday we have Rock the Cause. And I'm a numbers guy, so I'm just going to geek out for 1 second. Last year we raised $930,000 in one evening, and we're on path for in one night to raise over $1 million this Saturday. So wish us big good luck, because those dollars ultimately go to our primary beneficiaries: Boys and Girls Club, ICANN, Ascend, Chandler Care Center, Fans Across America, et cetera, for disadvantaged kids in our community. Really excited about it. Wish us luck in raising over $1 million in one night. That's all I got.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to wish you a happy birthday, and that seems to happen every year. But, and most importantly, Veterans Day is this weekend. It's an important time to reflect a little bit on the importance of our fine folks that serve us in the military, and have a safe and thoughtful weekend. Call your mom, tell her you love her. Bye-bye.
Councilmember Wong.
So first, happy birthday. Very unfortunate, on Monday, there's a tragedy. 9 Americans are killed in Mexico, not far away from us. 3 ladies and 6 children. 2 of them are twins, 8-month twins. And so I think this is a terrible and unspeakable crime, and my heart is with the family affected. So I would like to request a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Okay. So the 10th annual Chuck Weekend Cook-Off will be held this Friday and Saturday at Tumbleweed Park. The Chandler Chuck Wagon Cook-Off is one of the largest Chuck Wagon cooking events in the Southwest. On Saturday, Mayor Hockey, Councilmember Lopez, and I will be judging the dishes made by Chuck Wagon cooks. So be sure to check out the website for times and more information. I look forward to seeing you there. So that's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yeah, I'm looking for the Chuck Wagon Cook-Off. It's good every year. It's awesome. First one formal announcement here. Senate Time is back. So on the city's cable channel, Channel 11, I know everybody's got that favorited on their smart TV, like I do. And also a subscriber to our city's YouTube channel, you'll be able to see a new movie on the first Friday of every month at 7 p.m., and you can watch it throughout the month on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sunday evenings. This November's film selection is The Greenkeeper by director Lisa Pozo Nunez. Senate Time is an original show created through a unique collaboration between the City of Chandler and the Chandler International Film Festival. So please tune in and look up the Chandler International Film Festival for more information. You can also go to chandleraz.gov/Senatime for more information. Also wanted to wish somebody else a birthday, somebody a little older. So last month, the United States Navy celebrated their birthday back in October, the 13th of October, but their little brother, the U.S. Marine Corps, I think we got a couple of Marines out there, also celebrate their birthday on the 10th of November. And with Veterans Day coming up, also I want to thank all the veterans, my fellow veterans, and the family members out there. So we don't serve alone, we serve with all of our family. So thank you for all the sacrifices that you have made. And so now I'm the last one. Are we supposed to sing happy birthday to the mayor? Nope, happy birthday. No, yeah. Got lucked out, so. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
That was special.
Mayor, I have nothing for tonight.
City Manager.
Mayor, I know I am standing between you and a birthday dinner, but I just wanted to let all of the council know, as you approved us through the budget process to enter and sell bonds for this year, we did go to the bond market and successfully reaffirmed our AAA bond ratings. And so with that, I did want to just kind of give you a little quote to at least end the meeting on a good note from those bond rating agencies. So with Moody's, they did say that Chandler has a rapidly expanding local economy that is poised for continued growth above average socioeconomic profile, solid fiscal practices, and a strong management team that has taken proactive steps to pay down the pension liabilities. Standard & Poor's, the stable outlook reflects our view of the city's growing local economy and very strong flexibility, which is supported by very strong financial management policies and practices. The outlook further reflects our view of the city's proactive approach to addressing its unfunded pension liability and rising pension contributions. We do not expect to change the ratings within a 2-year outlook horizon. And with Fitch, Chandler's exceptionally strong financial flexibility, enabled by solid expenditure flexibility and strong budget management practices, supplemented by healthy reserves, as well as its long-term liability burden. So that just goes to Mayor, Council, and our management team and all of the Team Chandler employees that go to help support these ratings. So just wanted to end that on a good note. So congratulations to everybody on the reaffirmation of the bond ratings.
All right, thank you. With that, that concludes our meeting. Keep your day job, Renee.